As we prepare for our upcoming segment, I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you that I want you to be aware of. We heard a very, very good presentation a few moments ago about business. And one of the things that I've learned in life is that it's important for you to maximize your opportunities. What do I mean by maximize your opportunities? All of us, we have multiple gifts and talents and abilities, and sometimes we focus in on one area. Let me give you an example. So you may spend your entire teenage years in pursuit of a job. So you go, you get an education, and you look at getting a job. And when you get that job, that's where it ends. So you focus your life on one avenue of potential success. But the truth is, really successful people often have multiple avenues. I remember, I have a very interesting story. I remember going to college, and when I returned home from college, I got a job. And when I got a job, I had a wife at the time. So I have a job, I have a wife. My job is in the career field that I've chosen. But at the end of the day, I am not making enough money. And I remember being idealistic, being young. I said to myself, this is unfair. I went to college, I got a degree, and here I am, I have a government job. And when they take out the deductions from my salary at the end of the day, I only have $100, and I have a wife. And so I began to think about it, and I said, what can I do? And that led me on my journey to have multiple income streams. So what did I do? I decided that I was going to utilize my gifts and my abilities in addition to my job. Your job is not the end for you. The job is a starting point. The job is a launch pad. Don't be restricted and constricted by a job. So I decided that just as Rikino mentioned earlier, I just looked at opportunities available. And so I started to think about it. I said, I want to provide for my family. I have a job, but it's not enough. What can I do? So I just started to think, and I said, you know what? Everybody has a lawn, and everybody needs their lawn cut. Now, I had no experience in cutting lawns, and people would look at me and they'd say, this guy has a college degree. What is he doing cutting lawns? But I didn't care. I wanted to make money. And I started to think about what was available. So I bought some lawnmowers. I sold my car and got a truck. And here I am. I'm a professional. I have a degree. I'm working in my field. And yet, I am doing something that most people would say doesn't make sense. But what I did was I took this idea and I began to make money with it. Because one of the things about life that's important is no matter who you are, the Bible tells us this. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money is evil. Money is not evil. Money is actually neutral. It's what you attach to your money that determines the direction it goes in. If you have the wrong motive in your life, then your money has the wrong motive. If you have the right motive, then your money has the right motive. Jesus put it this way. He said, wherever your heart is, your treasure will be. And so I decided that I needed resources to help my family. So that was my motivation. And I went and I started this lawn company. And the lawn company helped me to make money. Eventually, I decided that I needed to expand beyond the lawn company. And so what did I do? I started a clothing business. I really can identify with my brother Rikino because I was a hustler. I came from a hustling background. I was hustling from I was a youngster. I was in the pharmaceutical industry at the age of 12. I used to buy low and sell high. And so I decided that I wanted to do a clothing business because, again, I remember it was Christmas coming around and people were looking for Christmas gifts. So I started buying shirts and ties, and I had them in my truck that I used to do my lawn business with. And in between my vocation at the Ministry of Youth and Sports as a senior youth officer, I am hustling. And some people will say, why are you doing that? Well, I just wanted to provide for my family. I didn't want to steal, didn't want to get back into any illegal activity. And so I just became productive. And I want to tell you, that's an important key. Learn how to be productive in life. The worst thing that you can do in life is be idle. Learn how to be productive. And so I had some success selling clothes. And then after I started selling clothes, in my profession, I was leading what the Bahamas had created. It was called the Small Business Center. I was leading the Small Business Center. So I was advising people on how to get into business. And so I learned a lot about business, how to do business plans, how to do financial projections. And what I started to do was to engage the knowledge that I had in helping me. So I started a lawn company, then I started a clothing business, and then that led me to start another business. At the time, computers were just becoming popular, and I decided that, technology is the future. And so I am going to tap into this technological wave, and so I got into selling computers. Now, again, I'm sure you're looking at me and you're saying, well, why were you doing all of these businesses? I remember there's a very, very important scripture in the Bible. It says, God said, be fruitful and multiply. And sometimes we attach that to children. We think being fruitful and multiply means have children. No, being fruitful and multiply means that whatever you have, you put it to use and you reproduce. We are supposed to be productive people. We are supposed to have seed time and harvest. So you plant seeds and you reap fruit. And so here it was, I decided that I was going to go into the computer business. So I went into the computer business, and in the computer business, I remember when I started out, and people were skeptical of me. Even my wife was skeptical. When I mentioned Rakina's story, some people were looking at me and they were like, I remember telling my wife, I'm going to take our savings and I'm going to start a computer business. And she was like, no. Why are you going to take our savings? Well, our savings wasn't that much. I didn't have that much to lose. And so here it was, I started a computer business. And when I started the computer business, I knew nothing about computers. So I taught myself computers. I learned how to fix computers, I learned how to build computers, and I started selling computers. As I started selling computers, I started out with $1,400. From that investment, within the first year, I probably did maybe about $15,000, $20,000. The next year, it was $90,000. Then the next year, it was $250,000. Then it was $500,000, and so on and so on. And I ended up starting a business that helped me to build my house. It helped me to send my kids to college. It provided funding for me to do what I really like doing. And what I really like doing is helping people. So when we wanted to have a youth conference, when I wanted to do outreaches in parks and various areas, I was able to fund it myself. And it's so important what you do with your money. Wherever your heart is, your treasure will be there. So my heart was in helping people. So the first people that I helped was my family, and then after I helped my family, then I helped persons who were in need. And that's what life is all about. What is life if you don't share it? What is life if you don't help someone else along the way? What is life if you don't improve somebody else's standing? And so here I am. I'm a young man. At this time, I was still fairly young. And I started this computer company. Today, that computer company still exists. In the Bahamas, persons may have seen my commercial, persons have learned about it, and that company is called Megabyte Computers. and it's been around for some time. In fact, we, at one point in time, were a major player in the computer industry. And then I decided, being the productive person that I am, that I'm going to start another business. And the reason I started this business was because I began writing books. And as I started to write books, I realized that I had a publishing contract with an international global publisher. Dr. Miles Monroe and I wrote 2 books together, and those books were published by an international publisher. And when we got our royalties, I realized that his royalties was high and mine was low. And so I started to do some calculations. And one of the most important things that you can do in life is keep thinking. Keep examining what's around you. And find the lessons in your experiences. So one of the lessons that I learned in the publishing industry is that if you have a big name and a big following, then you get big royalties. If you have a small name and a smaller following, then you get small royalties. In order to maximize your profit, if you want to succeed in terms of publishing, it is better if you own the publishing vehicle. And so I started my publishing company. And what I realized from my publishing company was that he didn't need a publishing company himself because he had a name, and the publishing company did everything for him. They marketed for him because of his name. And that's how publishing companies go. If you have a big name, they want you because it means less work for them. So if your name is Bill Clinton or Obama or Oprah Winfrey or T.D. Jakes or someone else, the publishing companies run after you. But I began to realize that there's an avenue that you can choose where you own the publishing company, and so rather than you getting the small royalties, you get the bigger royalties. And because I established my publishing company, when I traveled around the world, instead of in the publishing industry, you make royalties between 10 and 25%, depending upon your standing, or even maybe 5 to 25%. So the small artists, the small authors, they make, 7%. The really big authors, they can make 25%. So with my publishing company, I was earning 10% royalties. So if a book is sold at retail at $10, I got $1. And if you are doing a heavy volume, that's great. But what I began to learn is that if I own the vehicle, instead of getting $1 on each book, I could get $6 on each book. And so when I started my publishing company, and I traveled and I sold my products, then I began to achieve a higher return. And that's what's so important. You have to be wise. You have to use wisdom. You have to find the opportunities. And so here it is. I have a publishing company. I have a computer company. I'm a traveling speaker, conference speaker. And I put all of these things together so that I can provide resources for my family, I can be productive, and I can help others. And that combination is the combination that I believe that will help us to succeed. And the final thing I want to leave with you is this. So when I started my publishing company and I began to personally benefit, then people would come to me and they say, "Who published your book?" And I said, "Well, I have a publishing company." And so then people started come to me and say, "I want to publish a book." So an idea that I used to help myself ended up helping others, but it also benefited me because I was the owner. And ownership is something that is so important. I want to say this to young people today. Learn how to become an owner. When you become an owner, your voice becomes louder. There's a scripture in the book of Proverbs that says this. It says, "A poor man's voice is seldom heard, You know, sometimes we, especially black people and brown people and so on, what happens is we think job instead of ownership. I want you to shift your thinking today. I want you to start thinking, what can I own? What can I produce rather than consume? We have a consumer mentality, but we need to develop a production mentality. We need to be producers and not just consumers. And so my publishing company today is another vehicle that I use to provide for my family and to help others. I want to encourage you today to remember the value of productivity and multiple income streams and start thinking ownership rather than just consumption. You are an owner. You are born to win. You have to choose to lose. Your winning streak begins today with your winning choices. God bless.